Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is G. Cole, and welcome to Homegrown, where I get to share with you some good music while talking to some great people. Hello world, hope you're feeling as good as I am. I want to big up all my homegrown listeners out there and welcome all the new listeners. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do, so we can keep you updated when new material is available. We will be posting new episodes bi-weekly. Want to thank everyone who has been listening and sharing. Please leave us a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Please check out the website homegrownwithgcole.com to listen and for all things homegrown. The podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Radio.com, YouTube, and all your podcast platforms. We're also very interactive. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MyGCole. The video of this interview is available on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by Hello Africa, the latest release from Chezidek, courtesy of Tad's Records.
This is Richie B, the Party Master. The album you've been waiting for is finally here. Chezidek's Hello Africa, featuring songs like March,
till we get just
Inna Dem Yai, Freedom,
I must fly.
Jah Protect Our Life,
Jah bless, don't let them
and the universal anthem Because I'm Black.
They won't come crucify I because I'm black.
Chezidek's Hello Africa, distributed by Tad's Records and available on all digital platforms worldwide. Get your copy today. Chezidek and Tad's Records, the ultimate reggae experience.
This is I, Chezidek, endorsing my new album, Hello Africa, Tad's production.
Because I'm black.
You've heard me talking about this dope book I had the pleasure of reading recently. It is called Wounded Survivor, a personal memoir on surviving loss of loved ones, sexual abuse, and illnesses, mental and physical. All right, we're going to be chopping it up with Jheanell Reynolds. She is the author of this book. And I got my copy. I know a couple of you guys said you got your copy. Who didn't get their copies yet? You need to go get it, right? One of the things I dig about this book, whenever it comes to anything, any content that's, heart heavy is the word I'm going to use. All right, heart heavy. And normally this thick and quite intimidating, right? So when you pick the book up, you have all intents and purpose of reading it, right? But then you flip across and you look at the spine of the book and you're like, well, God dang, it's an inch thick. You know what I mean? So it's a little intimidating. This book right here is not. All right? Takes you right in, tells her story, and from a bold, beautiful, optimistic perspective, and I dig it. I dig it. All right? So we're going to be chopping it up with her tonight. And we'll also let you go get the book. All right, everybody going. Here's the thing. It's Reggae Month. Let me say happy Reggae Month, everybody. Happy Black History Month. You know what I mean? We're celebrating Black History Month. A lot of people don't even know who started the thing. Make sure you go research that, all right? Because that's the least name I heard mentioned during Black History Month is the person who started the thing, all right? So we're going to talk a little bit about him later on. But here's the thing, though. You're the team, though. Tell your friends to tell their friends to join us right here. All right? All the people watching on YouTube, much love, much respect. I appreciate y'all. Valdo, Wagwan. What's popping? All right. Homegrown G. Cole, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at my G. Cole. Hit us up. All the people calling me right now, I ain't gonna pick up right now, all right? All the messages, I won't, all right? And I know you're looking in the camera, and I know you're looking at me, and I know you hear me talking, but you're still calling me. So here's the deal. Ain't picking up right now, all right? Not right now. So I'm gonna drop a joint and we're gonna get into this conversation. All right. Again, thank y'all so much for rocking with me. It's gonna be a vibe, man. Dan Wagwan. Lodge up to each and every one of y'all. It's gonna be a vibe tonight. All right. Gab, what's up, baby girl? How are you? Let's get into this Mark Johnson called Life, and then we squeeze in the thing. All right, let's go.
Life can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be this way. No. Gotcha. Anything God born, me born into. Without apology, no long arguments with you. Shh. Stop talk, you are refute the truth, and you prefer living in the dark. You in a white collar job, but you hands dirty. Corruption, injustice, the mercy. God can't sleep well, and every record in my keep, yeah. More time I show out, touch the street, and when me broke the corner is another white sheet. One more juvenile from down the lane, or another pretty girl gets slayed. Looking at the mirror, general, ready yourself. Turn to God alone because Him are your only help. Hear Him a call you. Better make case and guard, cause life can be beautiful. Doesn't have to be this way. You're listening to hear what I say. He's got the heart of gold. Trust God, only one who can keep you every day.
Yes, man.
Shine and rain.
Yeah, man.
Life tough, me know.
How did you can't ignore the sweetness of the music?
None of any money I collapse. Over time, pass sadness unless still I live from pay to pay. Me a pray you watch it, chat this and that. You want your friend, them a flirt.
Hey, Catherine.
Friends, dependent.
Shirley, walk on, Diane, you good?
On the premise.
It's a pleasure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big.
Appreciate y'all big time, man.
And the money man come a 6 cigar. You better wise up. Open your eyes up. Princess in up.
Shady.
So flat, a beauty body like some.
We got a massive and grand Cayman.
To God, come
Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas is locked in too.
like so right.
Whole diaspora there.
That can be beautiful.
It's that time. We're gonna have a nice convo, ladies and gentlemen.
This way, yeah. Hear what I say, yeah. Trust God, the
I'm gonna
only
give about 1:29 seconds, 28 to let your friends hear me. Let them know.
in sunshine and rain. Oh, la la la, la la la, la la la, la la la, la la la.
I love that you and us feel good, don't you?
La la la,
Put a pep in my step, you know what I mean?
la la la,
I wake up in the morning and I listen to this one.
la la la, la la la.
You can do some things, don't you?
La
Well, I work on the boss, I get on your nerves. Don't get fired now.
la la, la la la,
But you can say some stuff under your breath.
la la la.
Move from the. Yeah, I'm a. I got you, DJ Lance.
Life can be beautiful.
I got you, Beverly.
Doesn't have to be this way. Hear what I say. Trust God on the one. Keep you every day. Sunshine and rain. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Hear what I say. Just trust only one. Keep you every day.
Vibes. Vibes.
Yeah, man.
So, ladies and gentlemen, like I told you, special guest in the building, special show tonight. We'll bring her right front and center right away. You know what I mean? We ain't gonna hold it up no more for none of y'all. You know what I'm saying? Janelle, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
How are you? Loud and clear.
What's poppin'? How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
It's Thursday, baby. I can't complain.
Yep.
It's Thursday.
Yep.
It's better than Monday.
Yep.
Listen, I got through the book. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I got to introduce her again. Her name is Jheanell Reynolds, and she is the author of the book you've heard me talking about for the past couple of months and so forth. And been wanting to get to this convo with you because, one, on behalf of the masses listening, the people who haven't read it yet, let me say thank you, because it's a book that's going to help a lot of people. And a lot of times when it comes to putting out stuff like that, it's not about us. It's a selfless gesture, because you're bearing your soul. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But so many people will benefit from this one. So let me start out just by saying thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Pleasure. I'm going straight in. The book speaks of loss of loved ones, sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and illness, mental and physical. Let's go back a little further. Whenever I bring on the musicians and the artists, we go in. I like to get the backstories and stuff like that because,
Sure.
go already. So talk to me a little bit about young Janelle growing up in Jamaica with, back in the day as a kid, before any of this. What was life like growing up for you?
Life was wonderful. I mean, I had my parents, my brothers, my 3 older brothers actually, and life was good. It was really good. I think living in Jamaica, you get to see a lot of the things that people don't see normally. And my parents were privileged enough to go visit the country at least once a month, and that's something to spend time with our family and just do things that we get so caught up in our lives that we don't get to spend that quality time together. So at least once a month that used to happen. And I must say, like I said, growing up in Jamaica is one of the best things ever. And
Right.
you don't appreciate it until you leave. And I'm telling
True.
you, I miss it now, and I'm like, oh, I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's freezing here. I'm like, I wish I could be back home. So I know.
I'm not as cold as you, but I'm cold too, so I can relate. I can relate.
Oh boy, I tell you, yes. So
Now, now the book itself, I like the way it's titled because it kind of gives us a course to follow. In other words, you say surviving loss of loved ones. Let's start there. The first major loss that you suffered was that of your twin brother, right?
yes, yes. So
Now,
it was a misdiagnosis of his illness, and then he suffocated, and that was the first major loss I had.
mhm,
So losing your twin brother, you start losing your other half, and
right.
it's it was always us and we and Janelle and Jelani, and it was like, okay, well, it's just Janelle now, and
Mhm,
so dealing with that was a major blow for me.
right.
So
Right. It's amazing to hear you speak on that because, people who have siblings and those people who don't, when we talk about a twin, we
mhm,
always speculate on how the life of a twin is. Like there's
yeah,
this bond that they have that nobody else probably will. I've
yeah,
lost my brother recently, and that was a tough one. But I can't even imagine your twin, and not just your twin, but at such a young age.
yeah, yeah,
So so again, I know it's years later, but we still always say sorry for the loss because I know these wounds don't necessarily heal. We learn to
mhm,
survive and to live on, but the wounds don't necessarily heal.
exactly, exactly. So
All right. Now, one major struggle in understanding situations, in my eyes, on my mind, is that whenever things happen to us as a child,
mhm,
we can't necessarily articulate it the way we want to as a child. You know what I mean?
right,
But now when you verbalize it as an adult, it's still the eyes of the child and the feeling of the child and the hurt of the child, but you're verbalizing it as an adult. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and the whole concept of move on is null and void because it doesn't really happen.
It
But
does
talk
not.
to me now,
Mhm.
how now as an adult, when you lay back and you look back on those early years, how did that loss, outside of just losing your other half, how did that loss as a 13, 14-year old affect Janelle as an adult woman?
It sure did. I mean, for the first 3 months after his pass, I didn't speak. I was quiet. I stopped talking, because he was the one that did a lot of talking to the both of us, and so um, even though we went to different schools, and that was the reason why we went to different schools, is to allow the both of us to just kind of separate for a little bit and have our own friends and speak to other people without having the other one there. And so for the first 3 months, I would say I didn't speak. I was just so heartbroken and just so down that my parents didn't know what to do. The school didn't know what to do. I stayed home for about 2 months before I went back to high school. And that was more of a force, like,
Mhm.
you have to go back to school, and I'm glad they did because it allowed me to kind of open up a little bit to my friends, and even though they didn't understand what was going on, I didn't understand what was going on.
Mhm.
Um, I was still able to kind of share, and they were able to help me, along the way. My twin brothers' friends, they took on that role of being my big brother. And so they were there every weekend, making sure that, Janelle was okay. She went to school this week, did her homework, everything's fine. All right, well, we can go home, you know.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that. Looking back, I have to say it took a lot of people to help me to get to where I am today.
Right.
So
Amazing. Amazing. I only know of one other person who lost a twin, and amazingly enough, it was just about the same age, high school, 13 years old.
mhm,
And it's almost amazing, the damage, the hurt
yes,
is pretty similar. You can't avoid that. And hurt is one thing that life throws our way, but
mhm,
sometimes it's almost that sometimes you get thrown a double whammy or so forth, because then shortly
mhm.
thereafter you lost your dad, right?
Yes, yes. Right after that, my dad had a major heart attack and passed away.
Hmm.
Um, and that, oh gosh, I was beside myself. I
Right.
mean, nobody was expecting that. It just came out of the blue, and we just got hit hard.
Right.
And my mom and I, we knew at that point that it was best for us to move to the States at that point to be with our family and our friends here. Um, and so we left Jamaica shortly after that. But being there without him, I think he was such a big force in our life
Hmm.
that losing him was like, oh my gosh, and what's gonna happen to the bills? What's gonna happen? Who's gonna take care of my mom? Who's gonna take care of the light bill, the water bill, all of that stuff, the cable bill. I mean, those are things that we don't normally think of because you have somebody that's taking care of you, and then
Hmm.
it's gone, and then what do you do?
Right.
So um, certainly, it was a tough one. That was
I
a
can
tough
only
one.
imagine. I can only imagine. And the amazing thing is, you mentioned there that you guys ended up leaving, coming to the U.S. to be closer
Mhm.
to family. Um, I wonder a lot of times, because lonely is a crazy place to be. And I use the word, it's just a strange place to be, because nobody can tell you how to feel. It's, nobody can tell
Exactly.
what lonely is. Everybody
Yes.
says, I'm
Yes.
lonely, he's lonely, she's lonely, but it's an individual thing. It's an idiosyncrasy. So you
Mhm.
can't tell me what my lonely is.
Yes.
So how important is it, or how important was it to be able to, and it's not about leaving that situation because your heart's still there, but being
Mhm.
able to move, like you said, to be around friends and family that you can get some shoulders and to lean on, and some arms to, you know what I mean, to strengthen you when you need it. How important is that for people going through loss?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, you might think that you don't want it at that
Hmm.
particular time, and there were times where I was like, I don't, I need to be by myself. I don't want you around. I just don't want to be around anybody. But
Hmm.
I think never give up. Your family should always be there. Friends should always try to encourage you, and even just sitting there and not doing anything,
Right.
it means a lot. It
Just
means
knowing you're not alone.
just knowing that you're not alone
Right.
is
Right.
it's important.
Amazing. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're talking with Jheanell Reynolds. And again, she's the author of the book, Wounded Survivor. I want you to go out and check it out. It's a really, really dope book. It'll inspire so many people. So you moved to the US, you know, the crazy, one of my favorite rappers, Tupac, and he has a song called Life Goes On. It's amazing how no matter how much trauma comes your way, right? No matter what you're going through, the hurt is here, but tomorrow is gonna come. And the craziest thing, I think sometimes we feel guilty to even process this thought while we're in our hurt.
Right.
The fact that life goes on. You know what I mean? Is that something that you ever had to deal with? The fact that, you know what, I've got to move on, but I feel guilty. The fact that I'm getting up tomorrow, I'm smiling, but dad's not here. I'm smiling, but my brother's not here. Is that something that you ever had to deal with?
I still go through that even today. You know, I still go through that. It's hard because, you know, you feel like they're supposed to be here and they're not. And then, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be sad, you know, but at the end of the day, you're right. Life goes on and with whether you want it to or not, you know, and so I think like for me, I fell apart and I think that gave me the opportunity to kind of rebuild myself, you know, and to get to the place that I am today. And yeah, you know, I'm sad every now and again. The anniversaries come up and that makes me sad, but it's about celebrating their life and honoring them and making sure that, you know, my nieces and nephews remember, or we teach them who their loved ones are, you know, their grandma and their uncle and their grandpa, and just making sure that the legacy continues, you know. So
Right.
that's where we're at.
Love that. And then, you know, here you are, you're in the US, you're growing up. College is around the corner now, so that's another part of life. That's you going into from a teenager into young womanhood, growing up into adulthood. You know what I mean? And that in itself is a transition that requires so many, you know, others to be there for you also, because going from a teenager into an adult, you need advice, you need strength, you need this, you need that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you're rolling solo. You know what I mean? We're going to get to even today, because what I love about the book and about your story is not the trauma, but the triumph. You know what I mean? And a lot of times why I like speaking to people like yourself is because, you know, we go through stuff and we may go through it on our own, but we're not the only one going through it. And oftentimes a lot of people think that, you know what, this is it, today is today, and that's it. But there is a tomorrow. You know what I mean? And strong people survive, and sometimes they just need to share that strength with others. So for that, I appreciate it very, 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 very much. When did you remember the day that the book was released?
November 20th. It was actually the day after my mom's birthday, so I released it November 20th, 2020, last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that feeling when you got your hard copy of this book?
Wow, I was like, whoa, my name is on a book. Okay. It was a nice feeling. I'll say it was a very nice feeling just to see my name on a book and to reread the book in a hard copy, and it just really reassured me that I did the right thing. You know, I had one goal in mind, and that was to help somebody else. And I think that this book does a very good job doing that. So, you know, I chose to tell my story so that somebody else can benefit. You know, I don't know who, but it might be their survival guide. You know, my story being their survival guide. And so that's the reason why I wanted to share. So seeing my name was just amazing.
I love that. And I'm sure those watching over you would be very, very proud. We talk about dad. We talk about your brother. Now you are in the US, you and your mom here to be strength and source of strength for each other,
Yes.
going into those college years and so forth. And the losses continue. I've heard, mom, I hear you speak of mom. I've heard others speak of your mom as just, such a lovely personality. But before we even talk about loss of mom, talk to me a little bit about your mom, the lady she was. Because oftentimes you see somebody,
Wow.
you see
Yes.
mom. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. My mother, she has a strong personality, didn't put up with foolishness, was the disciplinarian, but she was a loving woman and loved to host everybody she could. She loved cooking, so I can guarantee you, if you came over to the house, there was gonna be some food on the stove, and we were gonna have a good time.
Right.
But that was my mom. Even when she was sick, she was still mom and still trying to cater to everybody else and make sure that they were well fed, and the games were being played and the music was being played and everybody just enjoying themselves.
Right.
So that was my mom.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. And I see your face just light up when you speak of mom. It's like, people don't realize sometimes, when it comes to moms have a place where I tell my father all the time, hey man, don't feel no way. Don't feel no way. We love you. But mom has a spot that it's just her spot. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, you're here. This is the strongest person because she shared the losses with you, right? You've lost a brother, she's lost a son. You've lost a dad, she's lost a husband. That's your source of strength. That's who you're pulling your strength from. And at one moment, she is that. And then another moment, you're watching her. Because the thing about loss is this: sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it's not. The lack of immediacy when it comes to loss, the benefit of it is it gives us an opportunity to we always say, well, I wish I had the opportunity to say something. I wish I had the opportunity to say goodbye, some last words, whatever. Whereas if something is immediate, you don't get that opportunity. But even enduring that process can be traumatic in itself. Talk to me a little bit about, being there and mom leaving. That's the word I'm going to use. Mom leaving. How was that, the effect of that and the effect of that on you?
Yeah, it was hard. I can tell you that day, it was just a weird experience. I have a little dog. Her name is Sparkle, and normally every morning she would run up the stairs and go check my mom, and she and my mom would hang out for a little bit, and they'll go back to sleep, and you know they'll come back down and everything will be fine. And that particular morning, my dog didn't go up the stairs. She sat at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Something is happening. And I just knew that day was going to be the last day with her. And so it was, I was able to go in and say my goodbyes, and she looked at me, and I know she was just trying so hard to say, are you sure you're gonna be okay? Are you sure? I could just see it in her eyes that she was just, that was a major thing that she was worried about, just making sure that I was gonna be okay if she ever left. And we had a harder heart on, I will tell you, it's November 5th, about 1 month before her passing. And she just apologized. She just said she was just so sorry, but she couldn't do this anymore. It was just getting too hard, and she needed to go to sleep. And I had to accept it, because I knew that she fought for 4 years when doctors told her that she would only live for 6 months. So for 4 years she fought, and I had to accept that part, that I know that she was fighting for me, and the time came, and I had to accept it. And
Right.
so that night, I just held her hand, and I just, we prayed. My brother was there, my grandmother was there, and the nurse was there,
Right.
and we just stood around, and we sang some songs, and she just passed on, and it was a beautiful experience in the sense that I know she wasn't feeling any pain.
Right.
And I know she went to heaven, and I know that, she's with my brother and my dad. And, there's a verse in the Bible that says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so that's my go-to, to know that, I know that they're okay, and I know that they're watching over me.
Right.
So it was hard, but um, I know that she's in a better place.
Right. Right.
So.
Right. Now, the amazing thing I'm grasping here is just listening to you speak and then even reflecting on the words of the book. You mentioned just now, you quoted from the scriptures. You mentioned also, growing up with that spiritual background. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
However, what I do realize a lot of times is going through experiences like these will make you question your spirituality,
Oh
and
yeah.
make you question
Oh
your
yeah.
faith. And it did that with you. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was one point where I gave up on God. I stopped going to church. I was like, you know what, this just doesn't make sense to me. How can I be a Christian? How can I be praying? And I've been praying for healing and praying for my family, and all of this is still happening. But
Right.
you know what? God God lost his son too, and at the end of the day, he understands, he lost his son. So he knows what we're going through. He knows the pain that we're feeling. He knows, what it's like to want to give up and just throw in the towel. So
Right.
I had to come to that realization that, you know, God will never waste my pain, and that there's a purpose for my pain, and which is to help somebody else. And that's my goal, and that's what I'm living for right now.
Right.
I'm actually really very sick, and I'm going through a lot of physical illness right now. But I think, in spite of that, I'm trying to use my experiences to help somebody else. Even if I have to do it from this nursing home here, and you know, it's there's a purpose for my pain.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know.
And it's beautiful to hear you say that, because again, even we talk about selflessness and selfishness, and if you go through stuff and you internalize it and you go through it on your own, it doesn't make you a selfish person, it makes you human, right?
Mm,
But to be able to share it with the world, especially for the sake of helping others, right? Knowing you are aware you're not the only person that it's not even so much about those people who have gone through and those people who are going through, but to think
mhm.
ahead about those people who will go through, because none
Who
of us are
will go
immune
through?
to the
Yep.
trials and tribulations of life. So for that, again,
Mhm.
eternally grateful. Now, I'm following the thread of the book, and again, surviving loss of loved ones, also surviving sexual abuse.
Mhm.
We are in Reggae Month, and I do a lot of stuff on here about the culture. The culture for us is the
Yeah.
music, the food, and all that stuff. But the unfortunate thing about the culture sometimes is there are certain things that are plagued within the culture that's almost normal within Jamaican society,
Yeah.
and it is sexual abuse,
Mhm.
right? Most women and even men that you speak to, if it's not one, it's the other, but most people won't reach the age of adulthood without having encountered some form of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Right now, you just lost your brother, right?
Mhm.
And at a vulnerable state, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about that encounter for you.
Sure. So I had literally just lost my brother. It had been maybe, give or take 2 or 3 months. and met this one person, and he just decided that, you know what, take advantage of me at that vulnerable state. And um, it happened multiple times, but I think I was so frightened and so taken aback by what was happening. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was like, wow, okay, this is happening to me. Okay, what do I do about it? Do I tell my parents? Do I tell somebody else? You know, and I chose to stay silent because
Right.
I didn't really understand that, you know, what just happened was molestation. And
Right.
I felt like, okay, I'm going to get in trouble if
Right.
I say something. And I think that's the kind of mentality that we have, is that we're the ones that will get in trouble. The other person's going to slide by and get a slap on the wrist, or, you know, and
If
go on
that.
with their life, you know. But
Yeah.
the other person is the one left dealing with the consequences of that action, you know.
Yeah. Right.
So I dealt with that at age 14, and again at age 16 with another individual. And that one was more surprising to me because it was somebody else in power, and I just could not understand why they would wait until when I've just lost somebody. I just felt like every time I lost somebody, this is what would happen. So then I started to associate this with loss, and um, I was like, no, something is not right. But I just felt like I couldn't tell anybody. And I know in the book I kind of mentioned that my mother, I didn't want to tell her because I was just so ashamed of what happened. But also I didn't want her to hurt her feelings, because she was the one that kind of said, you know, I think you should go out with this person and have dinner with this person. They will really want to counsel you, and um, I think you should do this. Do it for me and see how it goes.
Right.
And this counseling turned into something else that
Right.
shouldn't have. And so, you know, it's hard, but
Right.
you know, I don't know, you kind of lose sight of who you are for a second there, you know,
Right.
and lose a sense of yourself.
Right.
And for a long time, they held on to my mind and had control of my heart and
Right.
had control of everything within me. And that's one of the reasons why at the end of this chapter, at the end of the book, I wrote that letter,
Right.
because I needed to have them know that they no longer control my mind. They no longer control my heart. They no longer control my life.
Right.
And I had to forgive them so that I can move on.
Right.
So
Right.
that's where I am.
I found that to be extremely, extremely powerful, because when it comes to abuse, whether it be mental, physical, sexual, any abuse, oftentimes we talk to people around us, we talk to ourselves and so forth. What we don't do a lot of times is talk to our abusers. You know what I mean? So I thought it was very, very powerful that you addressed them. You know, because a lot of times, you know, counselors and the church and so forth, they'll tell you to, you know, forgive, because the forgiveness is for you. And that part is definitely true. It's not so much for them. But I think there's something powerful in being able to speak to them. And this is forever literature. So even if they don't hear it today, they'll hear it tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's almost like, let me take my power back from you.
Yeah.
And this hurt, this shame, this pain, let me give you that. So let's swap right here. All right, give me my power back.
Yeah. Yep.
And you take the shame and roll with it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
So that's what I gathered from that. Was that your intent?
That was my intent. Definitely my intent. Because I have not seen or heard from these people in many years. I don't know where they are. I don't wish to know, but I needed to let them know that the power they had over me wasn't going to happen anymore. And it took so many years for me to get to that point. But I'm there now, and I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what, I forgive them. Forgive them for me, not for them, for me, so that I can move on with my life and live my life where I'm not afraid of somebody who tries to hug me, or somebody, says something, give me a compliment, or, anything like that. So,
Right.
yeah.
It's amazing you say that, because that's, as we speak to people who have had instances of abuse, or we speak to those people who operate in that arena from a professional standpoint, they speak of that a lot in terms of the scars that you carry with you. Somebody, it's challenging to embark upon new and real relationships. You know what I mean? Whether it be platonic or romantic relationships, because of the fact that you're always on guard, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? Especially if whenever you do choose to let down your guard, the opportunity does reoccur just from a different vantage point. Like you mentioned here in the book, it actually happened again later on as you tried to move on.
Yeah. So
those themselves are crazy. Go ahead.
I think, like I said, you talk about it happening again. It happened twice again. And so dealing with that, I think it's just one of those things that you kind of look at yourself and you're like, really, is this really happening again?
Right.
No, it's not happening. I don't think it's happening. Let me just kind of sit down for a little bit and chill. And you kind of try to kind of play it off, and it's not working, because deep down, that this is wrong. No, you reach a point where you're like, I recognize all the signs, I recognize all the pinpoints, I can pinpoint what is going wrong. And I got to that point where I was like, okay, yes, this is wrong. So, for a long time, I think I blamed myself, and for putting myself in that position. But I think I had to learn that, it was my abuser's fault. It's not my own. It's my abuser's. And so once I got to that point where I learned that, and then I was able to write the letter to my abusers, I think it made me a bit stronger, a lot stronger, to deal with what I'm dealing with right now.
Right. I love it. You know, as I listen to you speak, and even thinking about it a lot, I had conversations with some young men before, had a symposium at a school, and we spoke about everything. And people, well, as I spoke to them, I realized that what young boys, teenage boys, and men in general associate rape and sexual abuse with is violence and injury. And if there's no violence and there's no injury, then nothing
happened, right?
It didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that we've got to get rid of, not just from the vantage point of abusers and potential abusers, but for victims themselves, because they too get stuck in that rut of thinking, well,
of course.
I don't have any bruises to show. I don't have the black eye to show. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the broken arm to show, or whatever the case may be. So who's going to believe me? Did you go through some of that though? As far as
I did, I sure did. like I said in the book, nobody's gonna believe me. For a long time, I even started to say I don't believe what happened. I said, what, it didn't happen, and so I just brushed it off as if it didn't happen. And it wasn't until I got to therapy that I had to come right up front with it and acknowledge the fact that yes, it did, it happened, and this is how we're going to deal with it and how we're going to move on from it, because we're at the point where I couldn't, the statute of limitations have passed, and so I couldn't report it at that point. But you get to the point where you learn a lot from just sitting around and observing things, and I think I had to go through what I went through just to be where I'm at, because I don't think I would be able to deal with what I am dealing with now. Um, So I think, like I said, there's a purpose for my pain and what I've been through. So.
Gotcha. They say the hardest steel is what comes through the hottest fire. So,
Oh yeah.
no, we talk about life and the transitions, and I like the way the book is laid out. Again, there's something to it that I really dig, which is the word I'm going to use is simplicity. You know what I mean? Oftentimes the information is there and we really want the information, but we want it in its simplest form, and we're not reading it to be sad. There's a lot of things going on in life, so we don't want the sad book. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the book itself to me is cover to cover encouragement, cover to cover strength, cover to cover growth, cover to cover just brilliance. And I dig it, and I implore people that they gotta go grab it for that reason and so many other reasons. But for that, now college, it's a beautiful book, but you didn't go to college to be a writer. Talk to me a little bit about about what you were doing in college.
Yes. So I went to college to be a doctor officially. I did biology. I got my bachelor's of science in biological sciences. And that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing research. When my mother died, I kind of took a step back from medical school and started to do a lot of research. So I ended up moving to Pennsylvania to do market research for pharmaceutical companies, where I focus a lot on oncology drugs. So I did that for 5 years, and then I decided to transition into the consumer market. So I did a lot of consumer products. So things like, something simple, like maybe the drinks that you're drinking, the water, or the soda that you drink, So I focused on that a lot, but I still stayed within the research arena of market research. So that's what I did. And then last year, over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, people have been telling me, you should write a book, you should write a book. And the thought had always been in the back of my mind. And last year, I had the opportunity to just kind of sit down and just journal.
Right.
And I started journaling. And before you know it, I had 2 chapters down. And I was like, oh, wow, I can turn this into a book. And so I transferred everything from my phone, because I had been just typing everything on my phone. Transferred everything from my phone to Microsoft Word on my computer, and then I just kept writing, and I wrote until the book was done. And it took me about 2.5 weeks to get that completed. And it was a long 2.5 weeks, but I'm grateful because it made me see what the potential that I have, of moving forward with my life and moving on. Not necessarily getting over, but certainly moving forward. And that was how this book came about. So, yep, research to writing. Yeah. So,
Yeah. If somebody had told you we're going to be writing books, you'd have been like,
oh boy,
nah.
you're right.
Now,
So,
amazingly enough, we talk about the books and so forth, and your field, your avenue of study, versus where we are today. You mentioned in the book also being in school and having them identify you as having some form of a mental illness. And you mentioned finding out right then and there in a school situation that you're being Baker acted right there in school. All right.
yeah.
That in itself, because one, not very many, maybe you did because of your avenue of study, but not very many people have any idea what Baker acting is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so forth. Take me there. What
Oh, wow.
take me
That
to that, man.
Oh gosh, that story. I had no idea what Baker accident was either until it actually happened. But essentially, I had been really down and down and out. It had been my twin brother's anniversary coming up. My mom was sick. I was I was sick. I was just really. I think I had pneumonia for like 6 months straight, and I just could not get better. And I decided to go to the doctor, which, like, if you're sick, you go to the doctor. And at the same time, my mother called, and the doctor was like, "Oh, let me speak to your mom." So she took the phone, went and talked to my mom, came back, and what I learned from my mother was that the doctor felt that I was really depressed and I needed to go to the hospital. So my mother at that time said, "Oh, sure, send her to the hospital. If she's sick, she needs to go to the hospital. Send her to the hospital." But that's not the hospital that the doctor was referring to.
Right,
So,
right.
my mother had no clue that's what she meant. And I went over to the counseling office and I had told them, I tried coming in last week and, nobody called me back, and I tried, but nobody's tried to help me. So here it is that I am sitting in the counseling office and I have no recollection of what happened. I totally, what they in psychological terms, they say dissociated, and totally went off to wherever I went and just completely blacked out for about 2 hours. Completely blacked out. And they had to call the police. So that was the best thing they felt they could do for me at that point, because it was a weekend and they could not leave me alone for the weekend on school property. So they felt the best thing to do was call the police and have the police escort me to the hospital. And so that's what they did. That in itself is a very embarrassing um, thing to go through, because where you come down the stairs, you're like right by the cafeteria and right by this breezeway, and so everybody's there watching what's going on. But thank God these police officers that never arrested me. They just escorted me to the police vehicle and took me in.
Right.
And I spent 72 hours in the hospital just being monitored. And my mom and my aunt and my brother and my friends and everybody came down they came to the hospital because they were like, they have no idea what Baker Act means, and something is clearly wrong. And so they all came to the hospital, and the doctors saw that, and they saw that I had the support that I needed. And so they decided that they would release me into my mom's care, provided that I would go back to Orlando and get into psychological counseling and see a psychiatrist as well.
Gotcha. It's amazing, and I mentioned the stuff that's chronicled here in the book, your transparency, the honesty, talking about it all, because what happens is this, for a lot of people, I oftentimes mention books as being the cheat code and the blueprint, and whatever the case may be. So if something's going to happen, something's about to happen, something's happening, I saw it in the books. I can, what to do, how to approach it, how to, what I mean? How to take care of yourself. So again, for that, we're appreciative. And a lot of the people right now are learning so much from you and from this book. Again, following the chronicle of the book here, we're talking about mental and physical illnesses, right? Because I'm a firm believer that one will ultimately lead to the other, right? Now, talking about mental illness, one thing I must say is, like you said, when you are, especially from a Caribbean background, growing up in a Caribbean community, the tabooism that comes along with it. Because when you grow up in Jamaica, there is no middle ground. You're either you're either good or you're off the rails. Right? Yeah. So is it a home or Bellevue? I saw them look on the thing, right? So, but if there's so many things that we can learn and get ready to and prepare ourselves for, just so we can walk this journey and come out on the other end, not unscathed, but okay. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But okay. And sometimes all we're looking for is just want to be okay.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, the thing about journals and chronicling stuff is we don't go through our lives by ourselves. So, once you put something together, then one, there are other people mentioned in it. Secondly, the thing that you deal with a lot of times is all the folks around that were like, man, I was there. How did I miss that? I didn't know. You know what I mean? And that is something that you also have to prepare yourself for, the primal guilt from other people. It's almost like you didn't do some stuff because of the guilt that you were, but now you got to anticipate some guilt and so forth. Did you ever think about stuff like those when you were about to put this book out?
I knew that I was going to get some questions. I thought about it, but I knew that the end result of it was going to be more beneficial than getting a few questions from my friends and family about, well, why didn't you tell me that you were suicidal, or why didn't you tell me that you were drinking so much, or or things like that. So I thought, I did think about it, but I have put that to the side, knowing that this book was going to help somebody else. So that was the reason why I never stopped. I continued with the process of getting the book published.
Right.
So.
And if anything, regardless, I'd be very, very proud. You know what I mean? Just based on, because again, we talk about trauma, but it's about triumph. And knowing that when you speak about just the stuff you've been through, being, having suicidal thoughts and all that stuff, what we have to think about pretty much is it's February 25th, it's 2021, and we're having this conversation, which means you're here and you're on the right path, and you know what I mean? Your triumph is obvious. You mentioned something in here too, which I think is more real than I've ever heard, is the concept of wearing the mask. You know what I mean? When you think about the mask, all right, a lot of people to your left and to your right are wearing a mask. We just don't know, because the purpose of masks is to protect your identity. But truth be told, it's also to protect your loved ones. I'm a comic book head, and 9 times out of 10, why these superheroes wear the masks is because they don't want their villains and their nemesis to come after their families and their loved ones. So we talk about the mask. I recall over the past last couple of years, or not last, but over some years, I'd run into you. You know what I mean? but you're always the bubbly personality, always ever the bright, beautiful smile and just that jovial personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, there is the mask. Talk to me a little bit about the concept of the mask and how
Yes.
difficult it is to wear that mask while underneath it going through so much.
Oh my goodness, it's hard. I mean, that mask, you put it on and you just go about your business. You do what you have to do. It's almost as if you change into somebody else. And I used to say that I had this work Janelle, and work Janelle was going to be the one that took care of making sure that my job gets done and it gets done well. Schoolwork gets done, whatever needs to get done gets done. And being around family, then that was a different, that would come out and she would be the one that would make people laugh and we'll play some kaluki and
Right.
we have some fun and we dance and we play some music and stuff, but it's hard. It's hard because when you come home you're so exhausted and you're like, wow, I'm just ready to go to sleep for like 3 days, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So that mask is it's beneficial for that person, but it's hard to maintain because at the end of the day, you come home and you're just flat out tired,
Right.
and
It's heavy.
that's where you run into problems,
Right.
right? Because you come home, you're tired, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. You
Right.
get to that point where it's like, I'm done. I am so exhausted. I can't do it anymore, And
Right.
if you're not careful and you don't have that people in the corner that support you, then that's when bad things happen. You try to commit suicide, you do other things, you self harm, you all these things that just is not necessarily the right way to deal with things. So
Right. It's the concept of the mask comes up a lot, just conversation wise, and I've often wondered, what's the bigger challenge, putting that mask on or taking that mask off. You know what I mean? But so when you do look at it, though, like you said, the challenge of it sometimes is the mask is on to put on a facade for the people looking.
mhm.
But at some point in time, it gets heavy, and the only way to get away from that weight is to, in some regard, almost start putting on the mask for yourself. So it's almost kind of like,
Exactly.
I've been lying to y'all, so I got to start lying to me now because it's
Mhm.
becoming too much of a burden. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's one of those things, and I'm glad you put that here because so many people, not just from one extreme to the other, it doesn't have to be going through the same stuff, but a lot of people don't realize how unhealthy it is to wear the mask because I think
Mhm.
we are conditioned to think it's normal that everybody has has
Yeah.
a mask that we put
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and it's not supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that I love, I appreciate, and I gotta give props on is that when again the whole concept of our mental health coming
Mhm.
from our background is something we shy away from acknowledging and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when you see somebody out there getting help for their mental health, they were forced into it. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
But you got to a point to where you acknowledged and realized that you needed
Yeah.
assistance.
Yeah.
And that to me is very, very powerful. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I got to the point where I was living in Pennsylvania and I decided that what I need help. I can't go through this again and end up back in the hospital, which I did, but I can't just go through my life just living the way I was living, and I knew I needed help. So I decided to shop around, and I went to several different therapists, and I found until I found the right one, and I've been with that therapist now for almost 7 years, and she's helped me along the way. She's really, given me some nuggets and some coping skills to help me to cope with what I've been going through, my daily life. And I think it's important, if you I think it's important for everybody to have a therapist, or have someone that they can rely on, or someone that they can talk to, and share that person will be non-judgmental and able to assist you in any way they can. So that was my reason for going into therapy. And then at that point, that's when I found out all these other trauma-related issues that I had. And so, the major depressive disorder, the PTSD, the anxiety, panic attacks, I mean, all those things. I had no idea I was going through them, but I was going through them,
Right.
So, um, it's I'm glad that I found a therapist. I'm glad that I found a psychiatrist as well. And they both work in tandem, so to ensure that I'm getting the proper care that I need and the proper medication that I need.
Right.
So,
Right. See, the thing is, and as I look into it and do research and stuff like that, not just, again, there are different types of trauma, but going through the trauma sometimes it's like being stuck on an island. You know what I mean? And and when people talk about you being stuck on the island, they oftentimes talk about and think about you. Sometimes we got to take a minute to focus on the island. You know what I mean? The environment around you, how conducive it is or not to your, mental health. So what I really dig, and again, I must commend you for is you making the necessary steps, do what you've got to do, and make sure that you're in a healthy environment. Because again, there's so much stuff around us on a daily, the stresses of work, the stresses of relationships, the stresses of traffic, everything. So just being able to say, let me take myself out of that and nurture myself. What I will do is this. I'm going to ask you to talk to a couple of people, because you have spoken to the abusers, you know what I mean? And they're going to hear that for as long as they can, right? Speak a little bit to, because we have people who are, and it's unfortunate, it saddens me to say this, but others are going to. Others are, right? Others have. Speak to a young Jheanell, or a young girl, going through or about to go through stuff at that age. Because again, the great thing is, as an adult, you can verbalize now and articulate the stuff you couldn't then. Speak to the young girl or even young boy that is faced with stuff that you were faced with at that time.
I first of all, like, I would say to tell your story. Something I never did, and something I regret is not telling my story. And I think that's the biggest thing I would say, is to tell a story, because you don't know what your words could do. Your words could be that page for somebody else's survival guide. I said that before, and I keep saying it again. It could be the page for someone's survival guide. So tell your story. Also, I said this as well, that God will not waste your pain. So just know that at the end of the day, there's a purpose for your pain. There's purpose in you going through what you're going through or will go through. Just know that sometimes you have to fall apart in order to rebuild yourself. And there's another verse in the Bible, in Psalms, I believe, that says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." I really believe that. I really do believe that. That at the end of the day, the sun will come out tomorrow, and you will survive. You will triumph over that, and lean on others. Don't don't go through this by yourself. If you can, find somebody to talk to, find a therapist, find a psychiatrist, find somebody that you can relate to, and they can understand. I think a lot of times we try to, this whole therapy thing is such a taboo, and but you know what, at the end of the day, you're the one that is getting the help. So I truly believe that if there is somebody there that you can relate to, then lean on that person.
Wow. Now, the other thing I would love to ask you is this. Again, your background, educationally, is within the sciences.
Yeah.
You know, and the sciences and spirituality don't live in the same area code. You know what I mean? The same zip code. You know, what one colors the other, and so forth. So we talk about believing in the sciences, the scientists, the doctors, the professionals. But how important, how instrumental do you think it is or was to your success to hold on to what you almost lost, which was that spiritual grounding?
It's very important. I think, you know, I always say this all the time, you know, I'd rather be a Christian and be wrong than not be a Christian and be wrong, you know? So I think my life as my spirituality, you know, and leaning on God for what I'm going through, you know, is important, because in spite of what challenges I face, you know, and in spite of those challenges, I know that He's there for me, and I know that He won't let me down. You know, He never has left me, even when I thought He did. He never did. And so even when I was going to throw in the towel, all those times, He was still there, you know, and He would send that one person to give me that phone call that, you know, you never thought was coming, but it came at the right moment, and you end up not doing anything, you know. And I think, like, moments like that, he provides those moments for you, and it's encouraging. So I think it's important, very important.
Appreciate that. We talked to, like I said, a bunch of people. Some people who I think we should talk to, because a lot of times, you know, we always get the hindsight is 2020, and had you spoken to me about it, and had you told your story, and had you spoken up, then things would have been different. When the truth is, it may not have been. You know what I mean?
Right.
And more likely than not, if there was a difference, it wouldn't have been the difference that you were looking forward to. You know, a lot of times there are things and people to protect, and a lot, and you know, and like we always say, 9 times out of 10, it's something and someone close to home.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we're protecting that. We're also protecting our choices and our decisions. You know, maybe as a parent, as a guardian, as a friend, as a spouse, I dropped the ball. And for me to accept certain things and even speak on certain things would be me accepting that I dropped the ball and I don't want to do that. But I'd love for you to speak to friends and family of a young person that may be going through that. And when I say friends, could be, speak to me, speak to all of us out here, because we know people, but we don't know what they're going through. You know what I'm saying? So speak to just not the victims, not the victimizers, but let's speak to us, the people around who may have people in their lives that are going through something?
Yeah, I think, one, not blame yourself. Two, not blame the victims, because at the end of the day, they are hurting, and it's important for us to be there for them at that point. Um, I think you mentioned dropping the ball, and I can imagine what my parents would have felt if I had told them. I can imagine the hurt because they trusted these people too. Like I said, it's somebody. Usually, these people are so close to home that your parents will be like so shocked if they ever found out who these people are. So I think just be there for the person, and just you know um accept the fact that it's not your fault. At the end of the day, it's not your fault either. The abuse is the wrong thing, and they're the ones that deserve the blame. They're the ones that deserve um the consequences of their actions, not us, and certainly not you either.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, it's just a matter of just supporting one another and being there for each other, and just giving that rapport back and forth, because it's hard to go through sexual abuse or physical abuse or anything like that, and not have somebody to tell, or not have somebody to share it with. And whether you don't share it because of shame, or you're afraid that your parent or that other person might be upset with you, or whatever the situation is. But I think just being there for that person goes a far way. Goes a
Wow.
far way.
Wow. As you speak, I pull on certain words you say, and it's amazing. Pain, when we hold it in, it's a personal thing. When we let it out, it's a shared thing. And there's
Mhm.
pain here, but 9 times out of 10, it's us and our loved ones that are going to share that pain. And the person who inflicted the pain is off in the sunset,
Mhm.
pain free. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yep.
Now, as human beings, it puts us in a position sometimes to think ill, you know what I mean? And to harbor certain thoughts, which I don't think helps the process. But we are human beings.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And again, I'm circling right back to that's the reason why I am so grateful for you. One, putting your heart, putting your soul, putting your time, your effort, your energy into this book, because I think it is going to do a world of help for a lot of people. The approach in this book, I think, is ideal. I think, honestly, this is probably how people should approach writing literature that's dealing with personal pain, or just, we see all these self-help books and all kind of books that are encyclopedias, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But this
Yep.
right here, to me, was done perfectly, and you summed up your experiences, but you also summed up your even in the title, your survivorship, you know what I mean, making it through the ordeal and the obstacles. And for that, again, congrats.
Thank
you know
you.
I always wonder, when you go through the fire, when you're going through the fire, when life is a day by day experience, and you're still healing and growing,
Mhm.
what at the end of the day, what do you look forward to right now? I'm a daydreamer. So when you sit down in solace and in the privacy of your own domain, and you're daydreaming about tomorrow, what is Jheanell looking forward to?
So, like I mentioned before, I am extremely ill right now. I live in a nursing home. Um, I am going through what they call pulmonary fibrosis, lung involvement, lupus, and so technically, the doctors have given me a length of time left, but I have not really listened to them. But I think what I think about right now is just being able to be self-sufficient. I think to the point that I can actually move out of the nursing home into an independent living facility and from there back into the community. So right now, my goal is to walk again. And right now, I'm using a walker and not able to walk very far, but I'm doing physical therapy and occupational therapy every day. Trying to get to that point where I can walk and do things on my own, like take care of myself, get dressed, feed myself, things like that. And go from there. So that's next on my agenda is to get well enough so that I can get out of the nursing home.
Gotcha. That independence that you that you miss.
Yeah.
But it's on the horizon. It's coming back because you know what, the strength is there, and doctors could. I mean, they're saying what the computer tells them. I was at the doctor the other day, and she told me that she went to med school for science, but she gets paid to do administrative work. So type stuff up and go what the computer says. So yeah, they're half off, but don't tell them I said that though. But I tell you this, there's so much more of your story that needs to be told. So you're gonna be, be here for a long time doing chapter 2, 3, or should I say, volume 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? So it's all good. No, I've spoken about the book. It's like I record music and I release music, and it's sometimes it's a while before we get to absorb it from the listener's perspective. Because we're always on one side of the microphone, one side of the studio, you know what I mean? And then when you put it out, it's very rarely that you're just driving and minding your business and it pops on the radio, and that's when you get to absorb it. You know what I mean? Or somebody who doesn't know it's you is driving by and playing it, and that's when you get to absorb it from that vantage point. You're the author.
Yeah.
But talk to me about this book now from the other vantage point. You said you got the opportunity to actually now go back and read it from the reader's perspective.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that experience, reading your words back on paper.
Oh wow! So reading this book, it's like you said, it's a easy read. It's very simple. It's just to the point. I didn't want to get into this whole explanation of everything that didn't make sense or didn't add to the story. But Wounded Survivor, it's certainly dear to my heart, and it's a book that I can say will help other people, whether they have gone through loss, whether they have gone through sexual abuse or any sort of mental or physical illness, or know someone who's going through any of or one of these three things. So it's a book that I would say you should get. Wounded Survivor. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but I would say go on Amazon.com, type in Wounded Survivor, and purchase a copy. I think right now it's saying that it's temporarily out of stock, but the book is printed on demand, so that part of it is some glitch that we're trying to figure out how to fix. But go ahead on Amazon.com, purchase the book, and read it, and share with your friends and family. And like I said, you can contact me on woundedsurvivor.com. woundedsurvivor@hotmail.com, and I'm also on Instagram _woundedsurvivor_, and I'm also on Twitter at Author Jheanell. So there are many ways to contact me. So looking forward to hearing from you, and that's about it.
And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be reaching out because, again, my feedback on it pretty much is the content is heart. It touches the heart. You never want to, whether it's your family member, your friend, a stranger in the night, know of anyone that goes through the struggle and the trauma that you've endured, but it's more melancholy than it is sadness. Right. You know what I mean? It's not a sad book by any means. And I think it's important for not just people who are going through, who will go through, who have gone through, but I think more importantly, everybody else. And the reason why, we always talk about the fact that if somebody does something, right? What if we could rewind the hands of time and get to that person before they became that person? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So a lot of time, I think just buy it, bring it in a household, have your kids read it, your sons especially read it, because a lot of times they're not necessarily aware, or nobody has talked to them, has taught them at all about the hurt that they can inflict.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's important for those people, just regular people, to just read the book, because here's the deal. There's a lot more in here for those people who have not been hurt, who have not been wounded, than those people who have.
Yeah.
So they're going to go ahead and check it out. I'm going to keep talking about it because, again, I think it's just overall a dope book, Jheanell. And let me just say again, thank you on behalf of everybody listening in from near and far right now, all the people on YouTube, all the people on Facebook, everywhere. Thank you so much for taking your time to hang out with us. And I'm bringing the book to life for us. And it's like you are now you're the animated version. You're the Audible. You know what I mean? So thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And before, I want you to do one favor, drop the info one more time as to where they can get the book, your website, and so forth.
Sure. So it's on Amazon.com. If you type in Wounded Survivor, it pulls up that same green book with the heart on it. So it's also on Barnes and Noble as well. You can purchase it there. And you can contact me at woundedsurvivor@hotmail.com. You can also contact me on Instagram at _woundedsurvivor_, Twitter at Author Jheanell.
Or when all else fails, Google. You know what I mean?
Google works all the time. Yep, I tell you. You Google my name, but the book will come up. So
it'll come up.
Yep, it will come up.
Oh man, thanks again so much.
Thank you so much.
Wishing you a fantastic weekend. Like I said, it's Thursday. I'll take the Thursday over Monday any day. And if you're in town, make sure you look me up. All right, make sure you link me. All right.
I will.
Thanks so much again. You too.
All right, take care.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. It has indeed been a pleasure. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast Homegrown with G. Cole, available now on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and all your podcast platforms. Also, please check out the website homegrownwithgcole.com for all things homegrown. Remember, be safe, be kind, and be good to each other. My name is G. Cole, and this is Homegrown.
Nakikinika sa música, Homegrown with G. Cole.
Estás escuchando Homegrown con G. Cole.
您现在正在收听的是 Homegrown with G. Cole.
You're listening to Homegrown with G. Cole.
Remember, all the music played here on the podcast Homegrown with G. Cole is available on iTunes, Spotify, and all your digital retailers. Please support the artists.